Sonia stood at the edge of the water, her hair whipping as the wind blew. "Nerissa," she called out, her voice steady. "I know you are there and you can hear me. You can't have Tony, he belongs to me." The wave on the water became unnatural as the wind increased. And from the sea emerged the mermaid. She was beautiful, more than beautiful. Her long hair floated around her face, and her eyes shone bright with ancient sorrow. "You don't understand," the mermaid Nerissa said. "He is not just yours. He belongs to the sea now. I felt his heart and he is drawn to me." Her voice echoed like a song. Sonia clenched her hand. "You only felt the surface of him. What Tony and I have is pure and true. What we share is real. He chose me because he loves me." For a moment, Nerissa's expression twisted with rage and jealousy. But then sorrow took over her. Sonia and Tony were two young couples who had just gotten married and were so in love with each other. After their wedding, they went to a beautiful resort for their honeymoon. They paid for a luxurious apartment in one of the best hotels at the resort and planned to spend a month creating sweet memories together. Sonia felt lucky and was so happy because Tony was not just rich. He was also very handsome and charming. In fact, he was the dream of every lady. The apartment they paid for was close to the beach, and Tony loved it the most because he was a lover of water and an excellent swimmer. That afternoon they took a walk around the resort and later went to the beach. Tony couldn't resist the sight of the beach and the rhythm of the beautiful waves, with the cool breeze that came with it. "Babe, I'm going for a swim," he said excitedly to Sonia and took off his shirt almost immediately and dived into the water before she could respond. But there was something beneath the surface of the water. While swimming in the water, Tony felt a soft, gentle touch on his back, almost like a caress. He turned around to see who it was, but he was alone in the water. "Who touched me?" he asked in his mind while still looking around in the water. "Maybe I'm imagining things," he said. "Darling, please come out, I'm hungry already, let's go for lunch," Sonia shouted, standing at the shores of the beach, signaling for him to come out. Tony looked around one last time and swam back to the shore. Sonia wrapped her hands around him and gave him a kiss, as they walked hand in hand back to the hotel. Unknown to them, two silver eyes were watching from the depths of the water. A mermaid, known as Nerissa, had been watching Tony ever since he first stepped foot into the water. She was captivated by his strength and looks. For centuries, she had seen countless humans, but Tony was different. She only wanted to feel closer to Tony when she touched his back, but then she saw Sonia, beautiful and radiant, calling him. She became angry and jealous, something she hadn't felt in centuries, when she saw Tony kiss and hug his wife Sonia as he got out of the beach. "I want him, I won't lose him," she whispered into the waves as she swam back deep into the sea. A few days later, strange things began to happen. Tony would wake up in the morning, soaked with sea water, even though he had not gone to swim the previous night. At times he would sleepwalk and stand at the balcony staring at the beach with a blank expression as if it was calling out to him. One night, Sonia woke up to drink a glass of water. She looked at the side of the bed where Tony was but found him missing. "Maybe he's using the restroom," she thought, and stood up from the bed. "Baby," she called but got no reply. She went to the restroom and found it empty. "Where are you?" she asked as she walked back to the bedroom. "Tony," she kept calling as she still couldn't find him anywhere in the room. Where could he be? She questioned in her mind. She decided to check the balcony and froze at what she saw. She saw Tony walking straight into the sea with nothing but his sleepwear. "Tony!" she screamed, running after him. He didn't seem to hear her. He kept walking like he was in a trance, drawn by a silent voice only he could hear. Sonia ran as fast as she could and got to Tony before he got to the sea, by grabbing his hand. Tony blinked and gasped the moment she touched him, as if he were just waking up from a dream. "Baby, what happened? What are you doing here?" Sonia asked worriedly. I don't know what I was doing," he said, confused and shaking. "But you were walking into the water before I got you. Were you going for a swim at this time of the night?" Sonia asked again. "No," Tony said. "The last time I remember I was on the bed sleeping by your side." I can't remember walking all the way down here. It's all right, let's go back to the room, Sonia said, and they both left. Back in the room, Sonia didn't sleep. She felt there was something more than what it was, because, unknown to Tony, she had caught him staring at the beach like he was drawn to something, but chose to ignore it because she thought it was nothing. But now, she believes there was something in that water that was calling out to her husband. The next day, Sonia walked around the resort, while Tony stayed back in the hotel doing urgent work on his computer. She took a stroll on the beach, looking at the beautiful sea and the gentle waves, wondering what it was that was calling out to her husband. She stood at the edge close to it, allowing the water to touch her legs as she kept wondering. I see you like the beach, she heard a voice behind her. Startled, she turned and found an old lady with gray hair standing a few feet away, smiling at her. It's beautiful, Sonia replied, smiling back. But I feel there's something about it, something I can't explain. The old lady smiled, showing stained teeth. What is it that you can't explain? She asked. I don't know, but it's like something is inside this water, and it's calling out to Tony, my husband, Sonia said with worry on her face. You mean the young man who loves to swim? The old lady asked. Yes, that's my husband, Sonia replied hastily. The old lady's smile dropped slightly. He should be careful, she warned, and walked away, leaving Sonia confused by her words. Meanwhile, the mermaid watched from the depths of the sea, listening to their conversation. He's mine to keep, she said, and swam deeper into the sea. Sonia stood, looking at the waves, when suddenly she heard Tony call from afar. Why are you standing here? I thought you didn't like the beach, he said. I was just leaving. Let's go get something to drink, I'm thirsty, Sonia said, trying not to let Tony get to the water. They both left for the bar. While they sat, Sonia noticed the old lady sitting at a table alone, with a glass of water. But she noticed there was something off with the way she smiled at her. Do you know her? Tony asked after he saw the way Sonia was looking at the old lady. No, not really, I saw her at the beach a few hours ago, she replied. Tony didn't say anything. He just nodded and drank from his glass. But Sonia wasn't comfortable. She took another glance at the old lady. But to her surprise, she was gone. She looked around and at the entrance to see if she could see the old lady, but it was as if she was never there. Baby, what's wrong? Why do you look worried? Tony asked, looking anxiously at Sonia. The old lady, I can't seem to find her anywhere. Did you see her leaving? She asked. No, is there something about her I should be concerned about? Sonia shook her head. No, honey, it's nothing, and forced a smile. Later that day, it was almost evening, and Tony wore a white shirt and blue shorts. He wanted to go to the beach for a swim. Babe, let's go to the beach, I really need to swim a bit. Sonia looked up at Tony from the bed. Can we not go to the beach today? I really don't have a good feeling about it, he said. Come on, babe, it's just for a few minutes, I promise it won't take time, Tony pleaded. Sonia, who had been having a gut feeling throughout that day, had no choice but to agree to follow him, but she had it in mind to keep an eye on him while he swam. A few minutes later, they were standing on the shores of the beach holding hands. Tony was whispering sweet nothings to Sonia's ears, which made her laugh and wrap her arms around his neck. The mermaid, who had been watching from underneath the water, couldn't bear the way Sonia was laughing and being too cozy with Tony. She couldn't control her jealousy and allowed her emotions to take over. The waves became unnatural and the wind unpleasant. Nerissa was angry. Suddenly, she emerged from the sea, making herself huge as she screamed. He's mine, don't touch him. Sonia and Tony became so frightened at the sight of Nerissa and took to their heels. The mermaid stretched her hand and picked Tony like he was just a toy while he was running behind Sonia and went back into the sea. Sonia screamed, crying at the top of her voice as people ran to where she was. She ran back into the water, calling out for her husband, but he was gone. The mermaid had taken him, and the sea became calm. She kept crying, calling her husband to come back, while the people who came around dragged her out of the water. I saw what took him, it was a mermaid, she said with tears in her eyes. Please help me get my husband back, she pleaded with the crowd. Deep in the sea, Tony was so frightened. His eyes were shut and he kept holding his breath. Nerissa smiled, happy she had gotten what she wanted. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Breath," she whispered, and immediately Tony gasped for air and opened his eyes. "Hi, Tony," Nerissa said with a bright smile. She looked very beautiful, and her silver hair flowed behind her. Tony was captivated by her beauty. He had never seen such a beautiful creature before, but still, his heart only belonged to Sonia, his wife. "Please let me go," he pleaded. Nerissa looked closely at him, touching his face with her hand, and ignoring his pleas. "My name is Nerissa, and now you're mine, and you will be with me forever," she said, smiling brightly as she swam around him. Tony couldn't believe what he heard the mermaid say. He went on his knees, crying and pleading for Nerissa to let him go, but she ignored him and just stared at him with great admiration. Tony looked up, hoping he could see the water's surface, but he couldn't. He only saw bubbles and some little fish around with other stuff that beautifies the water world. "Sonia!" he whispered as he cried into his palms. "That's enough," Nerissa said, getting angry as her eyes turned white and the water around her turned dark. "Don't ever mention her name again," she warned. Tony became frightened and pleaded. "I'm sorry, please don't kill me," he said with a shaky voice. Nerissa became calm and sweet immediately when she heard Tony's voice. "Don't worry, I'll never hurt you," she said, touching his face delicately. Meanwhile, Sonia was still at the beach crying her eyes out while some divers were busy looking for Tony in the sea. "Tony, please come back to me," she kept murmuring, looking devastated. "What did you say that took your husband?" she heard someone ask. Sonia looked to see who was asking and saw the old lady standing alone, facing the sea, unmoved at what had happened, staring at her. "Who took your husband?" the old lady asked again. A mermaid did," Sonia replied. "Did you see it? Did you see the mermaid?" the old lady asked again to be sure Sonia knew what she was saying. "Yes, I saw her. She dragged my husband into the sea," Sonia explained in tears. "Nerissa," the old lady whispered to herself. "Stand up, wipe your tears and follow me," she said to Sonia. "No, I'm not leaving this place until I find my husband," Sonia shouted, frustrated. The old lady turned to face Sonia, who was surrounded by other people. "If you really want to find your husband, you will do as I say," she said and turned back to leave. "Please go with her, I know that old lady, she can help you," someone said. Sonia stood up immediately and followed the old lady. She walked quietly behind her with tears still dropping from her eyes. "Wipe your tears, Sonia, this is not a matter of crying," the old lady said. Sonia nodded her head like a child and wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Please, how do I get my husband back?" she asked, her voice cracked from crying so hard. "It will be very difficult to get him back, but you can if you try hard and never give up," the old lady said and stopped walking. She turned to look at Sonia with a straight face, and a bit of concern in her eyes. "I'll help you, but you have to do exactly what I tell you." "Okay, I will," Sonia nodded frantically. "Good. Don't go close to the beach for now, stay in your apartment. I'll see you tomorrow morning when I make my findings," the old lady said. "But how am I supposed to leave Tony in the sea, and all alone?" Sonia said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Oh, trust me, he's definitely not alone," the old lady said and walked away, leaving Sonia puzzled. Sonia walked back slowly to the apartment she and Tony had been living in since they came to the resort for their honeymoon. She turned back and looked at the sea, which was calm and looked like nothing had happened. "Tony," she whispered as a tear escaped her eyes, and she walked into the resort. Back in the sea, Tony was looking so sad with tears in his eyes, sitting on a huge seashell. Tears dropped from his eyes as he thought of Sonia and how she must be feeling. Nerissa swam close to him, looking beautiful and smiling brightly. "Stop crying, handsome, I promise you're going to be happy here with me," she said. "I will never be happy with you, I do not belong here, I belong to the outside world, I belong to Sonia," Tony said angrily and unafraid. "No," Nerissa shouted. Her eyes turned silver white, her hair spread and floating in the water. Everywhere became dark with silver bubbles floating around. "You're mine. You belong to me," Tony fell on the ground afraid, but still, he refused to accept what Nerissa was saying. Sonia is my wife, and I love her. Not after I feed you with my blood, Nerissa said, raging with anger. You will do no such thing, Nerissa, they heard a voice saying. Tony looked closely and saw another mermaid swimming towards them. She was dark in complexion, just like Nerissa, and had a silver tail. Her hair was very long and gold in color. She looked very beautiful, and a little older than Nerissa. You need to let him go, Nerissa, he doesn't belong to you, the mermaid said. Never, Lila, I felt him, he belongs to me, Nerissa said. You snatched him from his partner, and she's in pain and broken. She needs him back, you have to give him up, Lila said sternly, as if it were an order. You can't tell me what to do, Lila, I like him and I've taken him, Nerissa said angrily. No one can take him away from me. Tony was still on the ground, looking and listening to the two mermaids talking. He knelt down with his hands together with tears dropping from his eyes. Please, I'm begging you, let me go. Sonia and I just got married, and we came here for our honeymoon. Please, I beg you, Sonia needs me right now, he pleaded. Then what about me? We also have a connection, and there's no way I will let you go, never, Nerissa shouted. Lila swam closer to where Tony was and placed a hand on his shoulder. I'll take care of Sonia till you're set free. Tony looked at Lila for a moment, trying to figure out where he had seen her before. I know you, he whispered. You're the old lady from the resort. Lila smiled. I'll come again, but for the main time, make sure you don't eat or drink anything she gives you, she warned and swam away while Tony watched. Back at the resort, Sonia stood at the balcony facing the sea, imagining what was happening to Tony and why the mermaid took him. She wiped the tears from her eyes with the back of her palm and sat on the ground. What will I tell our family? She whispered to herself and sobbed softly. There's no way I'll let that mermaid take Tony away from me. I'll do whatever it takes to get him back, no matter what. She made a decision and went back into the room, but couldn't sleep all through the night. The next morning she heard a soft knock on the door. She rushed to open it and found the old lady standing at the door. Good morning, Sonia, the old lady greeted with a smile. Good morning, ma'am. Please come in, Sonia greeted. Any news about Tony? She asked anxiously. The old lady smiled. He's fine for now, she said. You need to go to the sea every day, to the same spot where he was abducted by the mermaid, and call out for your husband. Do that every day till he comes out of the sea, the old lady said. Every day. Till when? When do you think the mermaid will release him to me? Sonia said, sounding very weak. Your love for your husband will set him free, the old lady said and walked away. Sonia went to the sea that morning and stood at the exact spot where her husband, Tony, had been taken by the mermaid. She looked around at the sea as the waves washed over her feet. Tony, she shouted. Please come back to me, I need you, I really need you to come back to me, baby, please come back to me. She kept pleading and crying, not minding the stares she was getting from the people around. Some of them felt sorry and sympathized with her, while some just walked away minding their business. She didn't care. Her pain was so deep, too deep. She knelt down, the waves soaking her dress, as she kept calling out for her husband. Madam, there's no point calling out to your husband, he's gone, he's not coming back, a young man walking with his wife said. Please stop punishing yourself. I'll advise you to go home and inform both your families. Let them know what happened to your husband. Sonia ignored them and continued calling out. She could only do whatever the old lady said, because she believed only in her words. Meanwhile, Nerissa, the mermaid, watched from one side of the sea. Her eyes narrowed as she saw Sonia crying out for Tony relentlessly and how pitiful she looked. I don't care how long you do this, she whispered under the sea. I'm never going to give him up, never. Sonia became so weak that she had to rest under a coconut tree near the beach. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She looked around and saw two young couples walking hand in hand on the seashore, whispering in each other's ears and laughing. Then she thought of Tony and how they used to take a walk around the beach. A tear escaped her eyes. She sniffed as she wiped it off with a finger. Drink this for strength. Sonia looked up and saw the old lady again, offering her a coconut drink, her eyes calm, and full of something Sonia couldn't define. "Thanks," Sonia whispered and collected it. The old lady sat beside her facing the sea. "I know you're tired, but love never gives up. You'll definitely get your husband back," she said. Sonia was confused and exhausted. She looked at the old lady and wondered why she was so confident in what she was saying. "You sound more confident than I am. How am I even sure he's still alive?" The old lady, still looking at the sea, smiled faintly and replied, "That's because I know." She looked at Sonia. "I know a lot more than you can imagine." Sonia couldn't understand what she was saying. She sipped from the coconut drink offered and closed her eyes a bit to relax. "I'll see you later, but make sure you don't go to the water once it gets dark," the old lady said and walked away, leaving Sonia sitting alone and puzzled. The old lady walked to a distant part of the beach and into the sea. She looked around to make sure nobody was there and stood waist-deep in the water. "Nerissa," she called out, "I know you can hear me, come to me at once." Soon, there was a rumbling in the water close to where the old lady was. Nerissa came out very beautiful, her body halfway in the water. "What do you want?" she asked immediately. "I know you saw her crying, why don't you just let him go? She needs him," the old lady said. "And I need him too, I'm connected to him," Nerissa shouted. "No, you're not, Nerissa, you're only obsessed with him. What you feel for him is nothing compared to what she feels for him. You need to let him go," the old lady shouted back. "Listen, Nerissa, I know you think you found love after decades, but this is not love, this is abduction, Nerissa, and you need to stop before it's too late," the old lady said. Nerissa became quiet after what Lila said. She looked at her for some seconds, then dived back into the sea. She swam straight to where Tony was and stood in front of him. "Do you feel anything for me?" Nerissa asked, looking into his eyes. Tony looked away, not wanting to answer because he was afraid of what she would do if he told the truth. "Answer me, do you like me?" she asked again, sounding almost angry. "I love Sonia, she's the only woman for me," Tony replied truthfully with fear. Nerissa grew with jealousy and anger at his words. "But I'm more beautiful than her, and I can give you whatever you desire. Why do you still choose her over me?" she shouted. Tony could not say another word, he was frightened. "I will make you love me." "No, Nerissa, you can't force him to love you. His heart belongs to someone else," Lila said, swimming closer. "How's Sonia?" Tony asked the moment Lila got close. "Not too good, she hasn't stopped crying," she replied. "Please help me, take me away from here," Tony pleaded. Lila looked at him, feeling sorry. "I can't, you can only leave when she decides. That's the only way you can be free," she explained. Tony sighed, almost losing hope because he felt Nerissa wouldn't let him go. He sat back on the ground and wept. Lila couldn't help but feel sorry for him. "What do you want for you to let him go?" she asked. Nerissa hesitated, pain flashing in her eyes. She tried to speak before she heard someone calling her name on the surface of the sea. Sonia stood at the edge of the water, her hair whipping as the wind blew. "Nerissa," she called out, her voice steady. "I know you are there and you can hear me. You can't have Tony, he belongs to me." The wave on the water became unnatural as the wind increased. And from the sea emerged the Nerissa. She was beautiful, more than beautiful. Her long hair floated around her face, and her eyes shone bright with ancient sorrow. "You don't understand," Nerissa said. "He is not just yours. He belongs to the sea now. I felt his heart and he is drawn to me." Her voice echoed like a song. Sonia clenched her hand. "You only felt the surface of him. What Tony and I have is pure and true. What we share is real. He chose me because he loves me." For a moment, Nerissa's expression twisted with rage and jealousy. But then sorrow took over her. "You're right," she said finally. "He chose." And with a flicker of her tail, she disappeared into the sea. "I was alone for centuries. I felt less than a monster when I first saw him swimming. I thought it meant something different," Nerissa said immediately after she returned from the surface. "I understand loneliness," Lila said. "But love cannot be stolen, and you know that." Nerissa swayed her tail slowly and turned back to face Tony, who looked so broken, so human and so in love, but not with her, but with his wife Sonia. I want something that will never fade, something that will last forever, Nerissa said finally. I want a memory. Lila looked at her. A memory? She asked. Yes, a single perfect memory of him and Sonia, of their love, something I can keep. Not just a vision, a true memory, something I can keep, Nerissa said. How? What do you need it for? Tony asked. I can take it from you, Nerissa said. But it will be gone from your mind forever. One memory. The one you cherish the most. Tony became quiet. He looked at Lila and thought for a moment. My wedding day? Our late-night talk beneath the stars. Can I sacrifice that to save everything else? He questioned silently. Lila looked at him and touched his arm. It's your choice, she said softly. After a long silence, Tony nodded his head in agreement. Take it. Take our first walk by the beach. That's the one I think of when I'm trying to sleep, he said helplessly. Nerissa reached forward and gently placed her finger on his forehead. A gentle glow passed between her and Tony and tears welled in her eyes. Not for him, but for what she has never truly had. She looked at Tony with a bright smile. You're free, she said, and vanished into the dark blue sea. That evening, Sonia ignored the warnings the old lady gave and sat alone on the beach under the stars, unsure if Tony would come back. Wondering if the mermaid will release him after the confrontation she had with her. She sat on the shores remembering how she had secretly followed the old lady without being caught, saw her enter the water, and how she heard her calling Nerissa from the sea before turning into a beautiful mermaid. I never knew she was also a mermaid. No wonder she knew a lot, Sonia whispered quietly as the wind blew gently on her soft skin. She became lost in her thoughts as she watched the gentle waves of the beach. She stood up gently and walked into the water with slow strides, like it was calling her. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, Tony, I'm coming to meet you. She took a final glance at the beach and was about to fall into it when suddenly she saw a figure emerging from the water. She looked closely and saw him, walking slowly, soaked and trembling but alive. Tony, she asked, frozen, shocked and surprised. Is that you? He nodded his head, dazed, and then ran towards Sonia, who was already running towards him with open arms, crying. They hugged in a tight embrace, crying together. You came back, Sonia sobbed. You came back to me. I knew you would never leave me. I'll always come back to you no matter what, I promise, Tony whispered in her ear as they both walked back to their apartment. Meanwhile, far beneath the sea, Nerissa floated in the deep, cradling the memory she had taken from Tony in exchange for his freedom. The sound of Sonia's laughter, Tony's voice, and the touch of their fingers intertwined. She watched it over and over again with a bittersweet smile. It wasn't love, not truly, but it was enough to let go. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this story. Please drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We hope to see you soon in our next story. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and comment. Thanks and bye for now.